Alright, how's it going everybody? Today I'm working in the shop. I think this is going to be video number 10 on the Bulldozer here. So if you're new here and you don't know, my brother and I bought a Bulldozer actually a couple years ago now. That Bulldozer needed a ton of work, and you're currently looking at mostly the second Bulldozer we bought for parts. So the engine pretty much is the only thing on here right now that's out of the first Bulldozer we bought. We might use some other parts here and there, but mostly it's all going to be the second Bulldozer. Well, I guess I should say the one main other very important thing from the first Bulldozer that we're going to use is the tracks, which are not on this right now. But they're in really good shape, which was the main reason that we bought the first Bulldozer, is because the undercarriage was in good shape. But that was almost the only thing on it that was in good shape. So the engine was stuck when we bought it. We had to rebuild it. That's how it is now. And the engine that was in this machine is sitting right there, and that one's blown up. So anyway, I think this is video 10 in the series. If you want to catch up to this point, there is a link in the description to the playlist. Last episode we just got this motor in and bolted down. We got this crossbar back bolted into the machine. And today I'm going to be working on getting everything kind of closer to being able to start this engine. So first thing, we got this exhaust. By the way, sorry if that heater is kind of loud there. I can't really shut it off because then it would be ridiculously cold in here. Right now it's only pretty cold in here. So this exhaust manifold just lifts off. I'm going to have to take all the nuts off of those studs because I have to put these gaskets on. So let's do an easy one first. I should say that these washers here, I mentioned at the end of last episode, I think I mentioned anyway, that my dad was going to make washers, which I think he already did, and he either already made them or is going to make them, but I robbed these ones off up there. So they're supposed to go, this one right here is supposed to be on the top of the valve cover, and then there is an O-ring that goes in between it and the bolt so that you seal the whole top of this from water getting in the valve cover. They're the right size, so I stole them and I'm going to use them on the exhaust because the valve cover we can do pretty much any time, and the exhaust I have to get on before I can do any of the injection lines or anything because they wrap over the top of it. I'm going to put these washers here, and the ones my dad makes are going to go up there instead. I looked at buying these washers. I could get them off a McMaster-Carr. They still weren't exactly the right size, but they were close. But they were like $7 per washer. That's ridiculous. Including shipping, but still. Shipping and tax. After shipping and tax, it was going to be $7 a washer. Which is just insane. So, we needed 4, but still, it's $28 for 4 washers. So my dad made them for free. Out of some stock we just had laying around. By the way, I have a ridiculous amount of steel stock in a trailer that's right on the other side of that wall. I bought that at an auction from the Buffalo News. Buffalo News is, they're not out of business, not yet, but they don't manufacture in Buffalo anymore. All of their manufacturing moved to, all their printing and everything moved to Cleveland. So not now when you get the news in Buffalo, it actually comes from Cleveland. So if there's any breaking news, they have it printed in Cleveland, and then they got to drive it up here to distribute it. It's like, okay. But anyway, that's what they're doing. You know, this doesn't have like a this side out thing on it. And I'm not actually sure which way these are supposed to go. Definitely not that way. But it might go with the tab down. I'm going to say the tab's supposed to go down. So let me flip this over. Put that like that. Yeah, I think the tab's supposed to go down. Alright, you can see these tabs here. Those are on the bottom side. Match up with those tabs. So that's definitely the way it's supposed to go. Alright, exhaust manifold is on. I'm going to put this back on before I screw up those adjustments. These are the adjustments for the injection pump, so do not want to change those. I don't think. Probably don't want to change those unless they're not set correctly. We'll get to that when we get to actually running the motor. Right now, we're going to assume it's good and leave it how it is. Tom's got the injector line sitting there. They're not screwed on yet, but we'll get back to the injectors in a minute. But right now, Tom's going to install the lift pump. I'll be here tomorrow to work on stuff.
Okay.
Anyway, Mom and Bridget and I and Tess, maybe Dad, I don't know, are gonna get Christmas trees at, what do you call it? Allmotors.
Oh. Get a better look at that. These felts going around there.
Is there felt in there?
Yeah, but it's disgusting.
Yeah, that's one of the old ones.
Yeah, we have new ones.
Tom's plugging the injector ports with paper so dirt doesn't get in there. I tried cleaning up the surfaces from the out. This is a specialty splined socket that can be used to pull these cups out of the injection pump. And Tom's just tapping it on and then removing it to clean up the splines. And you can drink it.
Yeah.
It's all in one piece.
Yep.
Sorry, you got it.
There is an old gasket on there. I think I'm just gonna leave that gasket and try to reuse it.
As long as it doesn't leak.
We'll see.
This camera's gonna die in a minute anyway. Alright, got this block off plate that just goes right here. No idea what would be hooked to there other than the block off plate, but we don't have anything, so block off plate it is. This is a water port. So if it leaks, it's gonna leak water or antifreeze. 9/16, I mean, not 19. The 14 does not fit. I think Squatch clear coated a machine that he had that looked like this.
It's
He had, it was like, you know, there was a little bit of paint on stuff here and there.
mm-hmm.
He cleaned it up. He
There's the
just
one,
washed it and clear coated it.
He always goes by the serial numbers. Can't remember it.
What?
11J13 or something like that. That one.
Yeah.
And then he's got like the reason he was doing that because he said because he had a cab for it. Is that the one you're talking about?
I think so.
Yeah.
Is that filter for this?
This one's the fuel filter. I don't know if there's any other stuff that goes on there.
I think it just goes in there. I think it just sits there like that.
Yeah.
There's a plate down there that I think it just sits on.
I'd imagine it seals against the top of that cartridge.
This goes that way. That goes on like that.
Oh yeah, I looked in the book. I think it said this takes.
Okay, it is just sitting there.
It just takes regular 30 weight engine oil for this thing too. For the clutch.
I may have some 30 weight. I might not. Also,
Probably.
I
I
don't
might
know.
end up just seeing if I can find like a 55-gallon drum at an auction somewhere.
Right.
We're gonna need a lot of it. And
It takes 30 weight for the engine and for that.
engine and for that.
All right, we got enough washers for this. Put on regular washers first, then lock washer. Then nuts. So this is standing off on the filter a lot.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's the point. It's supposed to crush that a little bit.
Yeah. So I'm definitely convinced that it will seal.
Yeah.
You want to cross the street?
Yeah, across the right there.
Yeah.
Or around that way.
It's not going to get going really wrong. There was nothing else that had to go on, right? Just the lid.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know what these were supposed to be torqued to, the exhaust, but I just tightened them as much as I could with a wrench.
Yeah.
I assume that's fine.
Mm. Thing is, these are kind of followed up. I mean, they did spray. So.
I think, I mean, if it
They're
doesn't
not
run right, we'll
then-
pull them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you just finger tight, stick it in the hole,
Yeah.
and then tighten down the.
These are two pieces. Now my hands are greasy, but I'm gonna stick down in there. And the O-ring on that. And there's also another special O-ring goes on the top of those.
So that seals against probably that surface there, right?
He's tightened up.
Probably just tighten it enough so it don't leak, right?
Yep.
And that's it. So these ones, they just seal against the felt then, I guess,
Yeah.
on this side.
Well, yeah. The exterior of it does.
So these, I didn't tighten any of these down here.
Yeah.
Just hand tight. Tom's never seizing the glow plugs because he almost broke one in half when he took them out. So the injectors are all in. They're not tight yet, but they're on. I say we probably won't tighten them down until we're about to run it. We'll probably forget and we'll spray. Yeah. Well, we won't remember to do it, but then we'll spray diesel everywhere and then we'll remember. So you said you gotta get some standoffs or something for that? So you can reach the nuts on that?
On the radiator?
Yeah.
I need standoffs because the original bolt, the head's right next to the casting and I couldn't get, there's not enough room to swing a wrench or there's not enough room to get a socket onto the onto the head of the bolt. So a standoff will make it so the head of the bolt's down and it's still doing clamping like it's supposed to. You know.
What are these things over here? Do you need these for something?
Alright. That means the engine's pretty much sealed. Well, the combustion chambers are sealed.
Alright, so the progress so far, Tom put on the lift pump, which is back here. Put on the hour meter, which is set back to zeros and has a clear glass on it so you can actually read it. It looks a little distorted, especially on camera, but you can read. At this port, we potentially will put on tack, but not right now. It'll be a later thing. Got the fuel filter in, cap bolted down this fuel filter housing. We got the injector lines on the injection pump. Tom repacked. In here there is felt. He repacked the felt and put grease in there with it. Up here we put the injectors in, the cups. So that is, there's an injector in there and then this cup goes in with the O-ring in between and then another O-ring goes on and then the injector line goes on. So we got that, all those on, and the exhaust manifold's on. So next thing I'm going to do right now is put the starter on. We did not have a gasket for it, so I made one. I also made a gasket for up there and another gasket for the underneath down here. So that's the upper radiator hose, and then we'll have the lower radiator hose down there. Got gaskets for both of those. Tom's got to get some standoffs for down there made up before we can hook the bottom one up, but I can put the top one on now. This is the bottom radiator hose, so this is the piece that goes on the bottom of the radiator. That's the gasket I made for it, not a piece of cardboard. That's the upper radiator hose piece. And that's the gasket I made for that. And this is the gasket I made for the starter. So I'm going to put a bit of RTV on both sides of this. All of these are going to get RTV. They're a little bit thinner than the regular gasket material, so the RTV will thicken them up a little bit and also help seal. Especially this one, this has a fold in it, so we're going to want to make sure there's RTV on this to fill up that fold. This one seals against oil, the other two obviously seal against water. There's not oil actively against this, it's just in the top here. This case is filled with oil. This is a wet clutch system on this machine. So this is directly exposed to oil. The clutch housing and the engine both get 30 weight engine oil. So what I'm putting in here doesn't need to stand up to gear oil or anything. Alright, even though it doesn't need gear oil protection, I do have gear oil silicone here, so I'm just going to use it. In case, who knows, somebody down the line might put gear oil in this. Although I don't think you really can, because it's a wet clutch and that'll probably screw it up. But so I'm just going to put some on directly on this gasket. I'm just going to put a thin layer. I'm going to put the gasket on there. I'll let it set up and then I'll tighten it down. Alright, I got it all coated on that side. Then just set it up here. I'll get a layer on the other side. Alright, I got all the bolts on there just snug. I'm going to let it set up for at least a couple hours, and then I'll come back and crank them tight. The bottom of this is probably already pretty tight, but I think it'll be alright if I crank it later. I did get a little bit of squeeze out here, which I didn't want much squeeze out, but I did want to make sure that that fold up here got filled. So it shouldn't be too bad. Alright, next thing I gotta do is put on this oil line for the, this is oil to lubricate the injection pump. Alright, there we go. So that's the one end. Now you can see, so the starter's right down there, injection pump's up here. It hooks onto the injection pump, wraps around the back of the block, and goes to a T right here. Oops. Alright, so I got that end hooked up. I got to tighten up this end. Okay, that should not leak. All right, now Tom's installing the upper radiator hose. All right, we got the upper radiator hose on and hose clamps on.
And I did a couple more things off camera.
So I just hooked up, this is a ground wire, I hooked that on here. This is the power, I hooked that up. And back here there is, I think just a signal wire. It's white, probably to signal to start it. So this is, actually I don't know, I don't know where this hooks up. This probably hooks to there. Or there, I don't know. Gonna have to look back at the video, but this white wire and this red wire wrap around behind and go up to this panel. So the red wire hooks on the bottom and the white wire hooks right above it. So it's red on the bottom and then white up here. Here's the old hose for the lower radiator connection, and this is going to be the new one. Got to cut that length out of it.
So we got that section cut, and now we're ready to install it, but it's a little bit hard to get on there.
I think what we should do is get it all the way on like that,
Yeah.
and then put this piece on. Let me take that back off.
Right here's fine. That's all it's gonna go, I think.
Okay.
If I do that,
Started.
it's on.
Okay.
Just do whatever you gotta do, and then we can tighten up the clamps.
I'm having a hard time getting it up where I want it. In hindsight, we should have cut it a little bit longer, but I didn't realize we had the room to do that.
Alright, that's a lower radiator hose installed. Alright, now I gotta put on the screen and the fuel bowl on the fuel pump. So this is this goes on the lift pump before the injection pump. So the screen, it's just these set of little discs here. It's a whole bunch of little tiny discs, and they got holes in the middle, and there's little slots essentially that the fuel can come in. So this just gets screwed up in there, and that's what acts as your fuel screen. So you can, the nice thing about this is you can take this down, take this apart, and clean this all out, which I believe Tom did. It's definitely clean, so either Tom cleaned it or it didn't need cleaning. then you just tighten that up like that. You don't want to go too tight, but you don't want to go too loose because you don't want it to rattle out either. And then this is clean. Set that up on there. And then there's this little nut and bolt. The bolt head is slotted and there's a nut on the other end. Put the slot down in this wire. So the slot of the bolt head goes on the wire on the bottom. And you know what? I don't know if there's a gasket on here because this is too easy. I just double checked. There is a gasket up here. It's just still there from before. If it leaks, we'll have to replace a gasket, but since there's a gasket up there, so I'm just going to try to reuse it. As long as it doesn't leak, it's good. Alright. So that's... So like I said, there's a slot in here, and then you can just tighten that nut. Well, essentially, you're loosening the nut on the bolt, which is tightening it on the fuel bowl. I believe it's a 9/16. Yep. So you don't want to really crank on this, you just want it snug. But you want it tight enough, again, that the machine running is not going to rattle it loose. And I'm not sure why Tom doesn't have the rest of these bolts on here, but I'm going to go ahead and put them in. Alright, so we got the starter on. We've got everything finished with the fuel pump now. Got the fuel bowl on, lower radiator hose, upper radiator hose, and exhaust manifold and injectors. Alright, just wanted to show you real quick over on this side of the engine. Tom didn't film this, but he just put on this hose here. So it connects from, it's just a water line that connects from the head down to this part of the block here. Alright, the next thing I need to do is make a gasket that goes under this plate. So I got this sheet of paper. This is a really thick paper for painting. And I'm just going to bolt the paper down, and then I'm going to cut out what I need. First I got to find the holes. There's one. Alright, this ripped a little bit, but I'm still going to use it. This is only air, so it doesn't need to be a very good gasket. As long as it stops air from coming in. And it doesn't even have to be that good at stopping air from coming in. It really just has to stop dirt from coming in. Alright, now I got that bolted down and trim the excess. Cover that back up. All right. I'm just going to flip this like this and put all the bolts in, if I can, without dropping them on the ground. Okay. Okay, I got all the bolts in. I'm just using those to locate my gasket. Now we're using red. This is high temp stuff. Does not need to be high temp, but that's what I got. So this is just going to go on like this, right? I'm actually putting this on upside down, I think. Wipe that off of there and do the other side. So I only want one side to stick. Now this is the correct side. Second guessing myself. So this has to go on here, and then I'll flip it over onto this piece below me. And then I'll flip it over again when I actually put the plate on. Making a bit of a mess with this stuff, but I'll clean it up. Key is I need a thin layer on everything. Alright, I had to get the rest of that stuff smeared on there off camera because I needed a better working surface. But this entire the entire bottom side of this gasket is coated, and I'm going to put it on like this. And I'm going to try to wipe off that excess as best as I can. Get the excess wiped off of this side, so this side doesn't stick. Because I want this air cover to be removable. Alright, that's that. We have this bolt and this bolt.
Those 4 bolts by the big hole are longer than the rest, and I had a couple of those long ones in the wrong holes. I'll put those last 4 on later.
Next thing, I think, so in this hole here is where the decompression rod goes. That's this. Now this engine doesn't have decompression because we don't have the pony motor. This is electric start. If you had a pony motor to start it, you would have the decompression rod in there. I think that this one was set up, I think this engine was set up so that you could do that at some point. I think you could get it with a pony motor, but that's not what we have. So we do have the decompression rod though. It's not in the head, so we either have to block off this port or put the decompression rod in, because it'll leak oil out of this. So we have to decide which of those we're going to do and then do it. Other than that though, I think we're ready to put the dash on, so that's just the last thing we got to do. Obviously if we had the dash sitting right here, we would not be able to install the decompression rod at all, and we'd probably have a really hard time putting a freeze plug in there either, so we got to do that first. So the reason we have to take this rail off is there's a pin right here that pins in the decompression bar. So we need to take the rockers off, then we can slide the bar in and put the rockers back on and torque it down.
The other thing is this, see that O-ring?
No, that's the groove.
Oh, for the pin.
That's the pin groove. See, I thought that was an O-ring too at first, but that's just for the pin location.
Yeah.
What is that?
This is other stuff that came with that.
Came with what?
This is what the guy took out.
Oh.
That, and a broken spring. The plunger. So I'm guessing maybe this spring went down in that hole.
Yeah, it went in there. So that's a detent.
Yeah.
We just need a spring for it. Do you have any springs roughly that size? All right, so this collar goes on here. Like this. And there's two depressions in it, and Tom has a little rod with a ball on the end that goes down in a hole in here with a spring, and it holds it in that position, and then if you rotate it, it holds it in that position. And this pin is what holds that detent in place. One other thing we have to figure out is which way this is supposed to go. You'll see that hole down in there? There's a hole right there. So the spring goes in, and that goes in.
Can you get a light down there and see how deep that hole goes?
Just right there.
It ends?
Yeah. And there's a pocket in the bottom for that thing to press down. Right?
Yeah. That could have been very bad.
Yeah, probably don't do that.
Okay.
Just let it sit there. So do you know which way these things go?
Yeah.
It's got to go one way or 90 degrees to it. That's probably a stronger spring than you needed.
Yeah, it's the only one in that form factor.
Oh, wait, you got to put this in before you slide it through there. Back a little more. Okay. Wait, no, it's got to go on the other. This thing's in the way. Pull it all the way back past the detent. If I can get this. Will it go in there? No. Well, here, I got the detent.
Here, if you rotate that so that one of those line up down here. Something bad just happened.
Oh, that thing fell down there?
Here, take this. Put
Do
this
you
somewhere
have
safe. Magnet, yeah.
magnet? I'm going fishing.
Good.
One in this one, I think, right? Okay. Look at this rod. The decompression pushes against these things, so we need to know which way it needs to be facing. I think it's that way. I think you got it. Yes, you got it facing the right way, more or less.
No. That's the way you wanted it?
That's got to be hammered in there, I think.
It's probably a taper pin.
We could take this rod out.
Yeah, we can pull that.
It's a metal hammer, claw hammer. D10 is probably really hard, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if we can get all the way around.
Yeah, you can. Why wouldn't you be able to?
Because the spring is too tall of a compression height. Is it different, just random spring was just stuck in there? I mean, we just got to decide which way is off. You know, which
It's off right now.
no, it's. I mean, we never want to engage it.
Okay.
Then we need a freeze plug for this side. Unless it's in there. Oh, it's already got a freeze plug. Okay, yeah. Then when the head's all sealed now. If it doesn't fit, then. Okay.
That's the valve cover on it. It's right over there somewhere. We need to put these washers on. What I have on there is just temporary nonsense. Dad made these. We might have to replace these O-rings, but I couldn't find any that size, so if it doesn't leak, probably doesn't matter.
Yeah. I think a big washer should do good just as umbrellas anyway.
Yeah. Where did that go? This one and this one, we need to put the rail on. I think it's those two. Maybe it's the other two. It's these two. And that washer goes on there. Well, we're gonna have to take them all out, I guess, because are these are tight, right?
Yeah.
I think you tightened it.
You want to put the air cleaner on like that, or do you think we should clean it out a little bit? Charge pipe.
What needs to be cleaned out of it? There's rust, you mean?
Yeah.
You can take them out and grease them if you
It
want.
goes
It's
this way?
facing my way, faces towards me, opening. Yeah, like that. Isn't a jar supposed to go here?
Yeah. Ball jar. The cooling system should be all good then, right? That's everything, right?
I
Upper
think so.
radiator, both the radiator hoses, this whatever heater line's going on over here,
Yeah.
block off plates on.
You want to fill it with water?
I'm just thinking of what, if we can kind of cross each of the systems off one by one. Because as long as,
The fuel system here.
yeah.
Why did you not have all the bolts in that? I put them in, but I didn't tighten them. The gaskets.
Two of them, I didn't know with two of them, or three of them bolted, are through bolts. I didn't know, I just didn't put it anyway.
Through bolts? I don't think any of them.
The three that I put on to install it are through bolts. So the other ones, and I had the whole thing apart.
Okay.
I think that's why. I don't actually remember why I didn't have any bolts in it, but I'm guessing that's why.
But there's a gasket on back behind this and everything?
There's a gasket between the block and everything. It doesn't get a gasket between the two halves of it. It's just sealed, but
Okay.
it's flat.
I didn't tighten them. They're on, but they're not tight. Other than that, the fuel system's done.
Okay. Water's done, fuel's done. Then we can just get the dash on.
Well, we also don't have the... Oh, you do have the gas tank hooked up. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I just put them on so that they were on. I was also trying to, put bolts anywhere they needed to go. But I didn't tighten it because I didn't know if a gasket was supposed to go on or something. It only had one bolt in it.
Alright, air cleaner housing is installed. And here Tom's putting on the clutch brake.
this thing has adjustment on it.
Yeah, this has to be done because we just put a new pad on there. So I wanted to have it do what it's supposed to with the spring, because whoever adjusted it before, his bottom will spring out.
All right, so the next thing to go on is going to be the dash, but we're going to save that for the next video. But I hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.